the same idea. The back end, you never know what you're going to see. It could be an RPC service or a CGI script or a shell script. You really have no idea what's running on the back end. The way SOAP works is, again, XML. Sound familiar? You form a post request that you send to the control URL that we got in one of the previous steps. And the body of the post request is going to be what's called a SOAP envelope, which is basically just an XML formatted API call that's going to have the action, the argument, and the type, and all that. Easy peasy. All right, what about this one? Can people read this one? Kind of? Sort of? No. Okay. So the things that are highlighted in red are from the description. First off, the things that are in blue are from the SEPD, the action definition. So we're putting them all together. The things in black are fairly standard, going to be the same over and over and over again. So yeah, this is how to SOAP. Okay, everybody can start paying attention again now. This is the TLDR UPnP to SOAP flowchart. You start out by sending out your msearch request. You get back a 200 OK that has the description URL. You get the description URL. You get a 200 OK that has the service type, SCPD URL, and control URL. Send a GET request to the SCPD URL, and then you get back another XML that has the action name and the arguments. Put all that together in a post request to the control URL, and hopefully you get back an HTTP 200 OK, and the device executes whatever you sent to it. More often than not, you're going to get a 500 error because you did something wrong. Okay, even better screenshot on this one. So this one, I actually had no intention of you guys being able to read. I just wanted to put this on there to show you. It's a screen capture from the official SOAP specs on upnp.org. This just gives you an idea of the breadth and depth of things that are already officially defined in the upnp.org specs. It runs the gamut from the obvious things like you can automate control of your audio video systems. That's when you've got like a Wi-Fi remote to control your TV. Home automation, we're seeing more and more of that with motion sensors and air conditioner controls working together to turn off your AC when nobody's home. It starts to get a little bit questionable when you start talking about things like physical security systems. Like I could kind of see a purpose for that maybe, like being able to unlock your door from your cell phone might be kind of cool, but might be kind of dangerous also. And then we start talking about how they're defining SOAP controls for like SCADA and ICS, because why wouldn't you want to be able to control your nuclear power plant from your iPhone? It seems like a perfectly good idea. And this is just what's officially defined. It's a whole can of worms when we start talking about vendors who decide to roll their own. You never know what's going to be out there, but the handy thing about SOAP is that it tells you what it does. Okay, so great. This is all awesome. We live in the Jetsons, basically. All of our devices happily talk to each other and work together, and everything's great. Have your toaster turn on the lights, set the TV to the news channel, and send you a text message when your breakfast is ready. That's not even a joke. We can totally do that, and it's awesome, right? Everything is sunshine and rainbows. The end. And the bad things. Okay, so now we have to talk about security, obviously. So these things really have the deck stacked against them from the get-go. First off, they're embedded devices. So, we're talking about limited memory and space, so you're not going to see like exploit mitigation, like memory corruption mitigations. Lots of times the board development and the software development are two completely separate companies. Like the board is just cranked out by some hardware company, and then different software vendors put their software on top of it, and it's not always designed to go on top of it. You start seeing a lot of the same code, especially when you consider SDKs released by the board manufacturer. The software manufacturer will be like, that's great, that's exactly what I need, just use that every time. But yeah, all in an effort to keep costs low. And then when you start talking about deployment, the attack surface is growing bigger and bigger and bigger as the Internet of Things is growing bigger and bigger and bigger. So we've got millions of these devices on the internet from every vendor you can imagine. Like, I don't know, I think even Nike is doing things on the Internet of Things now. But yeah, so it becomes really impossible to keep on top of firmware patches, especially if you're not able to actively push out updates to your customers. You have to rely on them to search you out and pull down the firmware update. It's never going to happen. This slide has some statistics on it that I pulled out of my ass. I don't know, this slide just felt like it needed some statistics, so I put some on there. But yeah, so XML parsing is really hard. It takes a lot of resources, and there's a lot of bugs that come with that. You need to parse it properly. But yeah, in 2013, 2.5 of all CVEs were XML related. And of those, almost 36% had CVSS severity of 7 or above. So, yeah, I know, right? Okay, so with all that in mind, it's no surprise at all that there's a huge attack surface here, spanning like every step of the UPnP stack. Yeah, we start seeing all of the standard old school vulns coming back again in a brand new protocol, like HTTP header parsing, command injection, XML parsing, and then you start seeing new things like SSDP header parsing, XXE vulns, XML external entity expansion. What I would like to do now, before I get into the really cool, awesome, fun stuff, I want to give you guys an idea of the attack complexity that we're talking about here, which is a pretty low bar, as you will see. So I'm going to go through and talk about some examples that have already been disclosed. So first off, can't talk about UPnP without mentioning the work of H.D. Moore from a couple years back. I'm sure you all heard about it. He released a slew of vulnerabilities. CVE 2012-5958 was one of those. Basically, in mini UPnP, I think, they were taking the ST header from those notify packets, or from the msearch packets, sorry, and calling stir in copy, which is good in theory. Stir in copy is better than stir copy, but the argument that they were using for the length to copy was based on the input that you were sending to it. It was based on the number of characters between colons in the thing, and what you end up with is this, which is the exact same kind of vulnerability that we've been seeing since the 90s. The kind of lessons that we've learned countless times, and now they're coming up in a brand new attack surface. The one thing to note about this is that this is a multicast packet, so you can just jump on a network and send this out, even without a working exploit as the payload, and it's just going to bring down devices all across the network, anything that's vulnerable to it. Another example of a UPnP vulnerability. This one was discovered by Zach Cutlip, who I'm actually going to mention again later on. This is an example of a command injection vulnerability in a D-Link DIR 815. D-Link has had a terrible couple of years. I don't know if you guys keep up on these kinds of vulns, but they've gotten really, really good at response. Like they are one of the quickest vendors to respond to vulnerability disclosures now, because they have had a lot of practice. But yeah, so here's a command injection vulnerability. Again, the ST header. This time they feed whatever you give it to a shell script called msearch with no validation or sanitization. I'm sorry, I always say sanitation, so I have to enunciate. So yeah, what you end up with is this, again, multicast packet, so you can send this out on a network, have no idea that these devices are even on the network, and you're just popping boxes right and left. But yeah, so the ST header, UUID, colon, whatever command you want to execute on the device. All right, this one was a pretty recent one from this year in the AirT's RT series devices. Again, disclosed by owner Alan Bell. There's the link to the vuln. This one was even more old school because we're looking at a memcopy buffer overflow, memcopying the action that we're sending in a SOAP request into a statically sized buffer, which looks like this. So you'll see the SOAP action with the service type, and then the pound sign, and then more than 2048 bytes of data, and it'll overflow the buffer. You know, typical 90s vulns over and over and over again. Broadcom also has had a few vulns disclosed recently. This one was in the set connection type action of the new connection type, the new connection type argument of the set connection type action. Again, format string vulnerabilities are back, apparently. Same old, same old. Sorry, I'm starting to get bored with this myself. So this is kind of, the example of this vulnerability is a little bit arbitrary, but because this was in Python's SOAP libs, it was a pretty big deal. At least I thought so. This is a good example of an XXE vuln. So he wrote basically an echo service, so it would just echo whatever you sent to it. But you'll see the external entity defined at the top was a path to etc passwd, and so the service would be like, I'll expand that for you and send you back the contents of that file just fine. Shout out to my homie in Austin, Brandon Perry. This was a pretty cool one. It was a simple command injection in the hostname argument on F5 iControl devices. So, you know, shellcommand.whatever.com. That's my hostname. Okay, Zach Cutlip again. This is a great series of blog posts. I definitely recommend anybody go out there and read them. He basically takes some, I don't know if it was intentionally broken, but it was definitely broken code that was shipped with the device, and basically like goes through and fixes the code to be able to upload firmware images that